We are in a very cool time for music right now, especially in the realm of indie pop. For the past few years with my experience in the genre, there's always been this confusing blend between choosing traditional sounds in pop and mixing it with other genres like from hip hop and R&B. And honestly, I still very much like this style. I definitely think that when it's done well, it makes for a great unique sound. But something that I've been super fond of lately is the resurgence of live drums. It's almost as if this practice was forgotten for a few years, but now that it's back full swing with artists using it like Dua Lipa and Bruno Mars, you're probably wondering how you can implement it in your own tracks. Luckily for you, I've been mixing and producing with live drums for the entirety of my music career. So today, I'm going to show you how I utilize live drums for indie pop to get the perfect blend that makes your drums sound full. Let's go for me. Before we get started, I have a few notes for you. Number one, the song we're going to be looking at today is a song called Temperamental by the band Morningside Lane. I've been producing their music for the past few months, and this song is a great example of the perfect blend between sampled drums and live drums. And number two, I want to give you a quick gift for supporting this video and this channel. In the description down below, I have 2 free sample packs for you. Freeboy Volume 1 is a free indie pop drum pack, and Dreamboy Volume 1 is a free loop pack. Both you can use somewhere in your next song. With all that out the way, let's finally take a look at these drums. So, as with everything in music, there's no correct way to get started with this. You can start this process by tracking drums first and using samples afterwards. Or like in this instance, you can map out the drum part with samples so that when it comes time to track drums, all you have to do is follow the original arrangement. Something I will note, if you're starting out with live drums, you want to perform and arrange it exactly how you want it before anything else. With samples, you can always tailor things to the live drums, but when you're trying to do the other way around, it can be difficult to manipulate. If you're doing samples first, make sure the drummer is following the arrangement as closely as possible while leaving some wiggle room for creativity. Before Morningside Lane came in to record, I laid out the entire drum part using samples, so let's take a listen to that with the entire mix. Now, this sounds pretty solid, but to me, it wasn't hitting as hard as I wanted it to. A lot of it lacks a ton of that human feel that you would get from unquantized hi-hats or the dynamics of kicks and snares. I will say a few things that benefited us later was the use of cymbal swells and percussions. Using swells helps transitions a ton. And if you layer a crash below that right on that downbeat, it makes that section sound huge even without the live drums. Percussions like the tambourine that we have right here also help drive the song's groove even further. But even with all that, it still needs that last bit of oomph to it. Since Morningside Lane has a drummer in the band, hi Brian, we want to utilize him as much as possible while still keeping things modern sounding with the samples. So I sent them this version to practice along to get ready for the day of tracking. On the day of tracking, we kept things very bare bones. As you can see, the only mics that we ended up using was a stereo overhead, a live kick drum mic, snare top, snare bottom, and a room mic. To keep things sounding even more modern, we didn't even track any live toms. As you can see, all the toms that we had in the song were fully sampled. Now, this next part is tricky and something a lot of people tend to skip. When tracking live drums and even choosing the samples for the song, you want to choose drums that complement each other. For example, the snare sample we used has a lot of mid-range and low end, so when we track the live drum, the snare has a lot more crack to it. The same thing goes for the kick. The sample we used has a lot of the beater sound in the top end, where the live kick has a lot more of the low end. When you know the sound you're starting off with originally, the sound that you choose afterwards to layer on top of it should make up for what the original is lacking. So when you're tracking live drums, you have to keep that in mind and take your time adjusting mics to get the perfect sound that complements the samples. Once we had that all set up, we tracked it. So let's move on to how we mix this damn thing. There are two very important things that you need to keep note of before you even open up a single plugin. Number one, please organize where things are. Chances are there are a lot of tracks in your DAW after doing this. Save yourself the headache and organize it all in one section. In this case, the way I organized it was all the live drums and then the corresponding sample next to the live drum. So for example, this live kick drum is right here, the drum sample is right below it, and it gets routed to a simple kick bus. Same thing here, we have two live snares. We have the snare sample all getting sent to a snare bus. And all of the drum sounds get sent to a single drum bus. Of course, there's no wrong way to do this, but there's no reason why this bass DI should be in between the verse clap track and the regular clap track. Come on guys, let's keep this clean. Thing number two, the key to getting a great drum mix is understanding what needs to be prioritized for the song.
What the hell do you mean by that?
Well, for this song, we wanted the drums to be very reminiscent of the Linn drum machine, knowing that the drum samples we used were practically taken directly from that machine. But when you start mixing in the live drums, those Linn samples are still the priority. Therefore, you don't want the live drums to be louder than the samples. For a different song, you can even do the opposite. If you're working on a song where the live drums are the priority, you can use samples to be buried right beneath the live drums to just give it that extra push and consistency. Once you understand this, the first thing you need to do is set an overall balance based on that priority you set. We already did that here, so let's take a listen to how the balance sounds without any plugins. You'll see now that the live drums added a ton of groove. It sounds full and exciting even without the plugins and just volume. That one concept is how you get the perfect starting point to achieve full sounding drums. Without getting too deep with the actual mixing of the drums, you'll see that most of it just has EQ, a lot of it has some compression, and certain elements have some saturation through tape. And once you have that balance, the EQ and compression moves that you end up doing are only going to help the full drum sound at the end. With all the plugins on, let's hear how these drums sound in the entire mix. And that's it. By introducing a live drum element to your indie pop productions, you add a lot more human feel to the song, especially if you're recording it in your own unique space like your home. That sound will specifically be yours and make you stand out above all the other indie pop artists. And to get those drums sounding clean, 90% of it comes within the volume balance, as well as understanding the priority of what needs to be on top. I hope this helped you a ton. If you use this method, be sure to leave a comment down below which one you like prioritizing more, samples or live drums. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to get your free drum packs in the link in the description down below, and I will see you next time.